Hello, Brandon Lee here, and in this video I'm going to be talking to you about how to get better footage out of your DJI Osmo Pocket 3. So this camera is pretty versatile, easy to use, but to really get the most out of it, you do need some skills. So that's what the purpose of this video is. I'm going to give you some tips that you can apply right away as soon as you finish watching it. And if you want to learn more, I did actually make an entire course about the Osmo Pocket 3 for my film school, Unscripted Studio. So the link to that is going to be in the description. Otherwise, let's just go ahead and get started with those tips. And just so you know, this video is not sponsored by DJI. All right, my first and most basic tip is just about the settings. I like to shoot in 4K 24p, D-Log-M color space. So basically what that means is I'm shooting at the highest resolution possible, 4K. I'm shooting at 24p, which is the cinematic frame rate. It's the same frame rate that they use for every movie, every high-end TV show, every high-end TV commercial. However, if you're posting on TikTok or Instagram and you want a smoother look, then you might want to shoot at 30p instead. And the D-Log-M color space, this is log color space, allows me to have the most dynamic range possible in my image, but that also means that it will look gray when I first view the video file after recording. Then in post, I have to apply the DJI LUT to take it from the D-Log-M color space over to Rec 709, which is the standard looking color that we're used to seeing on monitors and screens. So that's the thing you have to do in post. It is an extra step, but it does mean that you'll get the absolute most dynamic range and the most color out of your Pocket 3. So those are the basic settings. There are a few more custom tweaks that I do, which are in my Osmo Pocket 3 course. If you're interested in learning more, the link is in the description. Otherwise, let's move on. My next tip with the Osmo Pocket 3 is to get the right exposure and especially avoid overexposing your shot, because it's kind of hard to see what you're exposing just by looking at the little screen on the Pocket 3. So I like to set my exposure manually, and I'll give you a few tricks for how to do that. On really sunny days, I use an ND filter on the Osmo Pocket 3. This little pack of filters saves me from having to increase my shutter speed whenever it gets bright outside, because the Osmo Pocket 3 has a fixed aperture, which means that you can't close down your aperture to darken the image. You do have to either use an ND filter or you have to increase your shutter. So what I'm doing here is I'm setting manual exposure, setting my shutter to 1/50th of a second, minimum ISO, and then I use the appropriate ND filter to darken the image so that it looks correct in my screen. And to double check my exposure, I use the DJI Mimo app. This is an app that you can download for free, and it connects with the Pocket 3 wirelessly, and then you can preview what you're shooting. So right now I can see that the exposure is looking pretty good. It's a little contrasty because it's super bright out, but I can tweak that a bit in post. So exposure looks good, and I can go ahead and film myself. Now, if that all sounds like way too much trouble and you don't want to do it, then you can use auto exposure, which is what I'm using right now to film myself. But in bright environments, you won't get motion blur. So if I move my hand or if I very quickly pan the gimbal around like this, you'll see that there's absolutely no blur in the world behind me, which looks a little bit strange. So it's just not as natural looking as having that 1/50th of a shutter motion blur in your image. But it's perfectly fine for vlogging if you just don't feel like dealing with ND filters. Now let's talk about sound, because a lot of us are going to be vlogging with the Osmo Pocket 3 just like I'm doing right now, and we want to get nice, crisp, clean dialogue as we talk. My main tip here is to use the DJI Mic 2 transmitter and keep it just out of frame on your shirt. So here's what I've got going on right now. If I pull this back a little bit further, the Mic 2 is clipped outside my shirt, and I have the wind muff, the little dead cat fuzzy thingy, on top of it to block out the wind. Then when I film myself talking, I just frame my shot so that you don't see the Mic 2 in the frame. That's how you're going to get the best possible audio, because you want to keep the mic outside your shirt if possible so that the shirt itself doesn't muffle the mic. And then you want to also try to keep it from not being in the shot, because that looks kind of lame. So that's my technique. I just put it a little bit lower than the frame line, and then I walk and talk as normal. And then if I want to get a wide shot of myself that shows my whole body, I use the magnet attachment on the outside and I put the mic on the inside of my shirt. So that's what's happening right here. I've got the Mic 2 transmitter with that wind fuzzy thing inside my shirt, and I've got the little magnet on the outside, and you can't really see it because I'm wearing a black shirt. Here's a little side tip: review your footage as you shoot. So right now I'm just chilling in the shade and I've got my Mimo app open and I'm playing back what I just shot for this video. Because what's really cool about this Mimo app is that you can check the audio along with the video. It has audio on the playback. So just make sure you take some review breaks. All right, let's move on. I hope you've been enjoying the video so far. I want to take a moment out right now to talk about the sponsor, Audio. Audio is a music and sound effects platform that I've been using for all my videos lately because they have a huge library that I haven't heard anywhere else, and I needed some new tracks to keep my creativity fresh. And with the Audio Pro subscription, you get unlimited downloads of music, unlimited downloads of sound effects. Almost every single type of media is covered, including commercials and work for clients. And you also get the new AI link match search engine that lets you paste a URL from a piece of music that you like, and then find similar matches through AI. I really like the types of playlists that Audio has already created for me. There's indie film soundtracks, there's cinematic, there's documentary, there's lo-fi beats, and I can download the stems of almost every single track in Audio to create exactly the mix that I want to use for my particular video. And yes, they do have sound effects which are equally useful. They are arranged in relevant categories like hits, risers, and whooshes. So I hope that got you interested in Audio. Please use my link in the description to sign up because you will get 70% off your first year, and that gives you unlimited downloads of music, sound effects, and you get to use Link Match AI, unlimited searches. All right, let's get back to the video. My next tip is to use your environment to get creative static shots. So right now, I have the Pocket 3 on a shelf in this coffee shop, and because the camera's so small, nobody really notices it. The way I set up this shot is with my Mimo app, which is on my phone, and all I have to do is look at the phone and make sure that the framing, and everything looks the way that I want it. I can adjust my gimbal, if I want to take it up a little bit or down a little bit to make the framing just right. I can also tap to focus just to make sure that I stay in focus in the frame. And then when I want to shoot, I just lower the phone out of the frame. Now I could use Active Track also. So let's go ahead back to the app. I'm gonna draw a line around myself. There we go. And now I'm being active tracked. You gotta be careful with the active track though, because sometimes if you move too much, it can look a little bit too random, or it can be like a bunch of unnecessary movement. So if I'm not gonna be moving a whole lot in the frame, I won't use the active track. That way it's not tracking my head every time that I move a little bit. My next tip is called the paper slide, or you can call this the menu slide or the napkin slide. The basic concept is you put the Osmo Pocket 3 on a piece of paper on a smooth surface like this table, and then you just slide it forward. I am active tracking right now my drink. So that means I've double tapped on the top of the drink where those little leaves are. And now as I push forward, the gimbal will automatically tilt down to properly frame my drink, which makes it look just a little bit more professional. Next, I'm going to talk about getting moving shots with the Pocket 3. So right now you're seeing through my eyes. This is exactly what I see as I hold the camera. And I'm going to get a shot moving that way. The gimbal is in tilt lock mode. We're in tilt locked mode. And I have my focus in single mode. And I tap on the background. And now I'm going to walk that way because I want to use parallax to create a more three-dimensional look to my shot. And parallax is where you have foreground objects moving in front of your background. Whenever I do gimbal shots, I try to include some sort of parallax because if you just have a wide shot with nothing in the foreground, you don't really see very much actual movement in the shot. It doesn't look very 3D. But if you adjust your framing and just put something in the foreground, like these flowers, your shot suddenly comes to life. So you should take advantage of foreground objects to bring life to your gimbal shots and make them look more three-dimensional. My next tip for using the gimbal in the Pocket 3 is to set that follow speed to slow, the rotational speed. I set that at slow because that gives me the smoothest response as I pan or tilt. And that makes my shots look nice and controlled and cinematic. And when I'm filming selfies, walking around like this, I usually put the gimbal speed at default because I need to pan it around a bit faster to keep up with myself. So I use that default speed instead of slow, but it is a little bit less smooth. Which brings me to my next tip, which is active track when filming selfies. So if you're having a little bit of trouble keeping yourself properly framed, or you just don't want to keep your eyes on the screen the whole time, you can just double tap on the screen and it will automatically track your face. Now here's a really cool thing about active track. I can adjust that framing. So let's say I don't want to be in the center. I can give myself a little bit of lead room like that. And now the active track is offset a bit. So I'm a little bit back in the frame toward the right side, not directly in the center, which can be more visually pleasing. So let's say I want it to track me, but I want to be in the lower right-hand corner of the frame, no problem. My next tip is about recording native vertical, which is what you're seeing right now. So the Osmo Pocket 3 can record 3K vertical video without you needing to hold the camera sideways. So to enable native vertical, you just have to swipe down the top menu, and then you click the rotation button until it says auto rotation, and then you're going to want to hold down the record button to start up your Osmo Pocket 3, and it will start up in vertical mode recording 3K like you see right now. And then if you flick the screen so that it goes horizontal, it will switch to recording 4K horizontal video. My final tip for you is about using ActiveTrack for a hyperlapse shot. So let's say you have something like this pink bunny that you want to be the focal point of a hyperlapse. All you have to do is double tap on that bunny. ActiveTrack will become enabled. And then you do your camera move, walking toward it, walking around it, whatever you want to do, and ActiveTrack will keep it framed for you. Okay, that's it for my quick tips. Hope you learned something. If you want to learn a whole lot more about the Osmo Pocket 3, check out the course that I made. It's in my Film School Unscripted Studio, and the link is in the description. Otherwise, please click like and subscribe. Once again, I am Brandon Lee, and I'll see you next time.